guys, welcome to Clockwork Dandy Noodles. I'm back. I apologise for the delay. I had some things to do, but I am back here. This is episode 6 breakdown of the Case Study of Vanitas, and what an episode we have had. A lot of interesting things starting to come to the surface, but before we get going, make sure you guys are subscribed. There is a midway review coming your way very shortly. I'm going to hopefully have that recorded this week for you guys and have it go up next week. This is where I will tell you my top 3 EDs, OPs and anime of the season so far, bearing in mind that this is halfway through, so things could change depending on how animes play their cards, how things end, all of the works. You guys saw it last time and you guys have really enjoyed being able to compare where things sat. There is indeed a Discord channel too. This will allow you to see all the delays. So I told you guys last night there would be a delay. Vanitas would only come out a day later just because things are a little bit busy, but things are settling down now. So I should be back on track again. Let's get back to it because this is a very interesting episode. And last time we saw Noe in a bit of a compromising situation with the charlatan himself. And this week we pick straight back up from that. So it's nice that we've just got a gap, we jump right back into it, no time's moved or anything. We are learning about the importance of a true name. And this is quite interesting because in some of the UK folklore, mainly folklore, I don't know how it is in your countries, but there's a lot of people who study things like Wicca and study the idea of magic. And they also believe that everybody has a true name. You have 2 names. You've got a given name and a name that you were born with, a name that you can't really escape. Which is why I think this is quite fascinating, the idea that once somebody gets hold of your true name in this anime, that's it. That is what I think is very, very interesting. That it's just that power over somebody is by knowing that true name. I love the fact that Noe was protected by Vanitas and it was such a smooth, it was so smooth. It was just, I'm here, did you hurt your ankle? The way it's all played off in a bit of a jokey manner is, I love it. I really starting to like the banter that Vanitas is bringing to the table. I've got to also say credit to this absolutely gorgeous building, the architecture, the composition is really nice. You've got some of those lines starting to drift. I really do like the sky effect as well. I think I've mentioned it briefly. I think that having it red, having all these little lines, this looks like it's cobweb. The moon is trapped within a cobweb in a sense. I really like this. It feels like you feel trapped. If anything, it's given the idea of being trapped within something. And this is supposed to be a different realm, a realm separate from the human realm, which I think is very, very interesting. Now, the charlatan, oddly, is visible to everybody in this next sequence. So this does raise a few questions. Up until this point, I believed he was just a shadow who would appear within somebody. However, now he's actually visible to everybody. And the fact that he uses the screech, this is the scream of despair, which ends up calling all of the cursed to it. I think this was absolutely fantastic because it shows the power that he has to his command, and the fact that they even name it the Beastly Orchestra. It's the power of sound. I love the naming convention for this. The Beastly Orchestra is fantastic. Everything about it feels very theatrical. The charlatan himself feels very theatrical, the way he appears and the way that he has this masquerade appearing before him. Everything feels very, very Venetian. The team up between Domi and Vanitas is fantastic. I really hope we get to see some more of this teaming up because it was smooth. Her drawing the sword and ripping the front of the dress, showing that's it, it's the end of formalities. It's getting rid of this beautiful thing and now we're going to show you some power. It's a very powerful statement. Her going, that's it, the dress is gone. This is me ready to fight. It also gives me this vibe of you've got a new party member joining your party and now you can use this party member. The red moon again within the spider web. Everything feels like it's connected. Everything feels like it's trapped within a bigger plot right now. And there is a bigger plot going on. Slowly getting the cards given to us bit by bit, which is why I think Vanitas works as a bit of a mystery because not too much is being given away at the same time, which I think is really, really clever. We learn some more things today and the story starts to broaden, and as we go every single episode it feels like we are slowly broadening the topic and we can start to see where we're going, which we can talk about because the final sequence again puts into play what this whole story we're watching is. Noe's thanking Vanitas for saving him is really, really nice. He doesn't give him any more details. He just says thank you and he leaves it at that. But it's a really nice moment. It solidifies the bond and showing these two entering them on a new level of understanding. However, sadly, this doesn't last very long. So the boys this time go through a bit of a bumpy ride. We end up seeing them at the closest, and then they get pulled apart a little bit later on as well, because we now get this next gruesome sequence of the ugly side of the curse, how far a curse can go, to the point where somebody cannot be saved. So up until this point, we've gone by the idea that you either get killed by the red vampires because you are considered cursed and unsavable, and you're going to turn into a monster, or Vanitas can perhaps save you. So that's what we've kind of been given, two options. But now we're given this middle ground where there is a point where it's uncurable. Vanitas cannot save everybody. And this is a mercy killing. I saw it as the mercy killing it was. We see a child begging to be killed because she's killing her mother. She's about to go and kill her sister. It hits Noé very, very differently. So Vanitas at this point doing a mercy killing, but Noé just cannot understand it. He doesn't see it as what it is. He's trying to stop Vanitas. He doesn't want him to kill somebody. He just sees it as a killing. Whilst Vanitas knew that he could not save her. She was too far gone. And this is where we end up with our tension this week. We end up having a wedge drawn between the two once more. Noé not really wanting to talk to Vanitas, really just seeing him in a different light in his head. And it really affects him seeing the death of this child. It's sad because no sooner as we saw them growing closer together, they end up coming apart for this section. Now, Veronica, I mentioned Veronica last week. I thought the design for Veronica is beautiful. If I ever cosplay anybody from this, I will be doing Veronica because I think that is a very beautiful design. But when it came to the Pandora Hearts, it was the Will of Abyss. So I've got a thing for white costumes, it would seem. Veronica's power is absolutely terrifying, but it is also really cool. She has this ice power, the power over ice, which perhaps matches the white hair and the look that she's actually going for, because white hair is generally often associated with a character who can be quite cold and calculating. And Veronica is just this. She's pretty cold about the way she's handling everything. Powerful. She gives off this aura of power. She has quite chivalry type vibes from Final Fantasy X. She's also got a Kitsune vibe going, which I really like because they're meant to be mischievous. They're meant to be a kind of, you can't trust them, but you can trust them. You've got to be very careful with Kitsune. They are very mischievous and tricksy. But Vanitas comes very, very close to death because we want to show how powerful this character really is. And I like the fact that we're starting to see a lot of characters within this world who are very powerful. We have our Hellfire Witch, who is shown to be very, very powerful, and she gets to come back this episode. We also get to see Veronica and Domi, different characters are very, very powerful. And we have a new character coming our way as well, who also is very, very powerful. The way Veronica kills people, or she's threatening to kill Vanitas, just sounds really brutal. So she's going to freeze his body and then break him into tiny little pieces, which is something that I sometimes freak out about because I don't know why. You see those videos of guys getting their tongues stuck to poles and things in the cold. I just freak out that it's one day just going to like break or tear or something. And yeah, I have a very vivid imagination. So as soon as I saw the fact that she was threatening to like break him into pieces, it made me feel a bit odd inside. We finally get the face reveal for Veronica. It fits her so well. It really is a great fit with those beautiful golden eyes, which again, it's a haunting look that she's got going on. She really does feel like a kitsune. But it's also interesting seeing that Domi is quite scared of her. That reaction is all you really need to know about Veronica. Seeing her own blood kin acting terrified and quite nervous when Veronica is there, that's all you really need to know, because it shows you that there is this respect, there is this level of, there's a reason to be scared of this character. So let's talk about our new character, Lord Ruffian. He is our new character. I like his look. He's got a bit of the guy from The Grey Man is a guy in The Grey Man. I can't even remember it now. It was the teacher who had, again, that red hair, that kind of look with the eye patch. Give me those kind of vibes. I like the design, the red hair as well. I think it looks really, really good. But it's also interesting to note that Veronica does immediately lie about the way that the events transpired. So he starts to tell a skewed version of what happened. This is when we get to see Lord Ruffian actually showing a complex character, because he initially, as soon as he found out that a young child has died, he immediately, this is something that he doesn't want to stand for. He's unforgivable. He jumps on the offensive to attack Vanitas. However, as soon as he realizes that that's maybe not the case, he stands down. He stands down amazing. It's a great display of power. It looks terrifying. It may be somebody else on Veronica's level. The red hair as well, showing us that he is a fiery, passionate character, but he's also got those elements of danger, so perhaps warm at heart as well. Where we get to see Noe standing up to protect Vanitas, and also suddenly realising that he's done exactly what Lord Ruthven has done, and that's a prejudice. Not understanding what's gone on and drawing your own conclusion, which is very, very important because this is exactly what Noe had done when he saw Vanitas kill a child. He literally just drew his own conclusion instead of actually noting what was actually going on, and he believes that he could have acted better. It's a very touching moment because Noe gets to 180 and actually look at his own behaviour. So Ruthven is Luca's uncle, which is a great little tie-in there, but he does seem like a reasonable person, and I think he's a kind of character I could get behind as well. I like people like this. He apologises. He has the ability to apologise, and this is what makes him a very interesting character. He's a character with a lot of power, and he clearly holds a very high ranking, but he also has the ability to reason. He apologises. He also goes down to melt the ice really, really gently. And that's when we get the cello theme starting to play. I don't know if it's Lord Ruthven's theme. Perhaps it is. But it is haunting. It's a very haunting piece. It sounds really sad, but it's also gorgeous. It sounds beautiful. Noe ends up collapsing, where this is where I got a little confused. I initially thought he was recalling the past. However, it doesn't seem like this is the past. So we're going to talk about this little sequence now. Noe sees his teacher once more, but again, we don't get a face. So we even start with the teacher starting us off with the importance of the true name, but we don't get a face. And we don't seem to get a face with this guy a lot of the time. And apart from last week when we saw the horrific reveal, which doesn't make me feel like that could be the full story. I don't feel like that's what he looks like, but I am suspicious of the teacher for a few different reasons. The teacher is essentially the closest thing to a parental figure Noe has ever had. We start to see Noe regretting his own actions, and this is when I started to figure out this is happening in the present. So he's talking to his teacher about Vanitas, about him regretting his own actions, about what had just happened. And this is the present, and this is where things get a little bit interesting in my head and what it actually means. Either the teacher has a way of connecting to Noe within his head thoughts and you can talk to one another via telepathy, or the teacher is within Noe. And this draws in quite nicely to what happened last week, because the charlatan also gets within people's heads. He's a character who appears within them and is able to lure them. He acts on desire. He's able to play on desire and get the true name from them. At this point, we are also seeing the teacher doing pretty much the same thing. He's talking within the mind of Noe. Now, either this is just a coincidence and there's nothing behind it, or there's something very suspicious and shifty going on behind this. He also conveys the feelings he wanted Vanitas and Noe to meet, and he's now very interested in seeing what's going to happen, which also continues the theme we had last week, where he sees people as a bit of an experiment, and I do wonder if this is another one of his experiments that he's sitting back and watching, but trying to figure out for what reason. If he does turn out to be the charlatan or something to do with the charlatan, I'm not surprised. I won't be the most shocked person in the room because it seems to be lining up quite nicely, but it could just simply be a coincidence. However, I don't really believe in coincidences when it comes to anime. So let's talk about the very last sequence where we are opening on a cold blue morning. And this is a complete 180 from what we are used to within this realm. We've always had this red because we're in the realm of the blood vampires. But now we've opened to a cold blue morning. It is calm. It is a bit lonely and a bit nostalgic and sad because there's an argument going on. We've finally got Vanitas and Noe having to talk it out. This is a really nice sequence as well, but it also feels quite sad because as well we've had a few people die. So it feels like we're having a morning of lamenting, a really, really sad morning where we finally get to talk between them, to get to actually talk to one another properly. And the talk ends up going a bit fiery quite quickly, where we actually see Vanitas being sparked to jump to the offensive with him pulling a knife. Vanitas acting the way he is making me wonder if he's trying to push Noe back for a reason. He seems to be creating this aspect of space. He also seems to be creating this facade of a character for him. I definitely think Vanitas is hiding his true self. He's got it buried within a bit more. And he's also trying to hide between a mask. He's wearing a mask. He's trying to show Noe something different. And this might play into what we're about to talk about and how we already know what the ending is. But this might be showing us that there is two sides to Vanitas, and he's forcefully trying to give off the impression, this one persona in particular. I also really like the fact that this argument ends up taking place over the top of a bell tolling. And it continues because you know that he's definitely shouting still. The bell is tolling. Vanitas is wound up and angry, and he's still shouting. It's something that I also feel would happen in real life. If you're so wound up, you're in that moment, you're in that fiery moment, you just continue because you know this argument continued whilst that bell was tolling. Also, bells tolling as a bit of symbology. Something is coming to an end, or something is about to begin. In this sense, I think it's about to begin, because this next moment, we finally see our duo finally coming together. So it really does feel like the bell is now tolling these two finally being on the same page. Or at least being on the same page, but being at least a few spaces or paragraphs away from each other, because you want to keep that space. I also think the reason why Vanitas continues to yell over the bell is he doesn't really want his true self to be heard, but he also does want to be heard. So he's a bit of a complex character where he is trying to put this spacer between his real self, but he also, I think, deep down, he has a desire to actually be understood and learn. He's conflicted. He's a character full of conflict. Him yelling over the bell could have stopped and he would have been heard easily once the bell stops tolling. I think he does this on purpose because he still wants to be heard, but he also realises that he also doesn't. He just simply needs to get it out of his system, which I think he really does do. He really gets it out. But Noe ends up being intrigued by Vanitas. This is where we finally get the building with the two, because it starts with them jabbing at one another and then they finally come together. So we have the relationship of love and hate where the duo finally continues. It finally commences with the two agreeing that, I'm following you, but you don't have to. It's a bit of a tsundere moment as well with the whole, you can do that if you really want, but it's okay, idiot. That kind of thing. Like, it gave me that kind of feel. Vanitas being a secret tsundere, perhaps. I feel like the pair of them are both equally inept at, maybe not inept, but both having these challenges when it comes to communicating. I think both of them struggle to communicate. Noe has had a very rough upbringing, so maybe he's not so used to being open with things, but he also had the close relationships with his friends. He had that. But I also wonder if perhaps it's made it a little bit more difficult to really confess the way he feels, or he's not really used to telling people how he feels. And Vanitas, well, he's still a mystery. We don't have too much information on Vanitas's backstory just yet, and there is a reason why. The next scene of Noe sitting in the present writing the story, which we are now going through, the story is being told from after. Now, this is something that we should already know, because we've already been given how it ends. We know how it's going to end. We just don't know how it's going to get to that point. Now, this, I think as well, the story being told from the after by Noe's perspective, I think this really works, because right now, whose backstory have we had? We've constantly had Noe's backstory. It's always been told from the perspective of Noe. We've always seen within his head. Vanitas himself is shown more or less from a viewer perspective. When Noe is looking up at Vanitas, he's with us, the audience. He's viewing Vanitas. This entire story, we are being told, is currently being written by Noe at the end. So we finally join the present Noe at this little moment in time, with him telling us that the end was starting to near in sight. As soon as they came together, as soon as this moment happened, the end started to line up. So the way that you could see where the end point's going to be. All of Noe's memories, everything. Vanitas and him now being on a bit of a timer. They have limited time, almost borrowed time. It was always going to end in a certain way. And I think at this point, him reflecting upon it, he saw the warning signs. Him reflecting, saying, this is maybe where it began. This is a warning sign. He is reflecting and saying, this is where, if I was more aware, because I've got hindsight now, I would have picked up on, this is a warning. This is a warning. I love the visual of the hourglass at the end, and then we end the episode. I really enjoyed this week's episode. I thought there was a lot of fantastic symbology. I thought there was a lot of character development too. It's a very big episode for character development and plot. Starting to see a few things like similarities between Charlatan and the teacher, starting to learn about the darker side of the curse, and the fact that there is a point where even Vanitas can't do anything. So Vanitas isn't a cure-all. He can't solve every problem. He understood what he needed to do and he was able to do it. We've got a lot of very interesting things going on. Some new characters coming to the fray. We've got Lord Rufian now as well, who I think is a very interesting character. I want to see Dante come back at some point. That'll be interesting. And with the final sequence, we're finally starting to perhaps put the story in alignment. Maybe getting a chronology for this actual story, knowing that the present Noé isn't the one we're actually watching. Up until this episode, we actually haven't seen present Noé. We are currently living a story in the past through somebody else's perspective. So the ending is already written. We know it's going to end with Noé supposedly killing Vanitas with his own hands. But we need to get there. We need to see what leads to that point. So I think it's absolutely fascinating. I like the way that this story is essentially told non-linear, but it feels linear. It feels like we're following it through time-wise, but in essence, showing us that there's a Noé in the present writing and reflecting back shows you the story is out of alignment. It is non-linear. So I'm really, really liking this anime. What are you guys feeling on this anime so far? We're approaching now, this is halfway point. So how are you guys finding Vanitas? It's definitely a very interesting story. I think it's living up to my hype and I'm glad I'm watching it because it's been quite a dry season for me. I will be back next week, guys. No delays next week, I promise. Make sure you guys are looking after yourselves. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.